Welcome to the Childfree Wealth Podcast, hosted by Bree and Dr. J, Certified Financial Planner. Here we discuss life and finances as it relates to being child-free. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please consult your advisor before implementing any ideas heard on this podcast.
I have Casey and Garrett. Happy to join me, kind of talking through this Childfree Wealth Checkup. I got everything you submitted, but we're going to spend about an hour together. What do you want to make sure we talk about?
Just kind of making sure that, we're on track with what we're doing right now from, retirement, investing, making sure that, we're following what we should be doing. And if not, kind of adjusting what our strategy needs to be, for short and long-term goals here.
And which one of you decided to book this? Was this you or Casey or Garrett?
I think I had originally seen it on social media that you guys were, doing these child-free checkups. And so I was like, I'd love to do this because we actually originally found you on the Dinky podcast when you were a guest. I'm a big podcast girly. I like listening to a lot of different ones. And so then you were talking about the Die with Zero book. So we read that. We actually listened to it on the way. We were on like a road trip. And then I just picked up your most recent book that you just released. And so I was like, well, we followed him through several different, forms of media. And so let's just talk to him, and had kind of already been talking about getting a financial planner and then maybe a tax person as well. And we'll kind of get into, why a little bit later on, but we're just hitting some, financial metrics that I think that we need to change some of our strategies. So I think I was kind of the primary driver, but we have both been interested in officially talking to somebody because we've been kind of self-sufficient up until now.
Mm-hmm. I really think it's getting an expert set of eyes and just having another person look at it that's not family to make sure that we're on the right track.
The unfortunate truth is your family might mean well, but they're going based on their financial plan, which is not yours. I mean, it's just the unfortunate truth of the child-free plan being different. It's not better or worse, it's just different.
Yeah. And it's just a generational thing. Like I love my dad, and we joke that he's like banker dude in my family, but I mean, they're just a different generation, and he subscribes to different, financial theories than we do. So I think that we have just kind of had our eyes open the last couple of years that we just need to do something different.
I always love that. Dad's like, you got to buy a house. I'm like, Dad, when you bought a house, it was $16,000. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
So Garrett, what do you want to make sure you get out of this?
Same thing. We have some tax questions, which obviously you're not our tax guy, but specifically around Roth IRAs and stuff, and making sure that we're accounting for our current income accordingly, but also get some more clear answers on the future.
Clear answers on the future. I am not sure my crystal ball is that great, but we'll get your tax questions. Don't worry. I've got everything down. I had a few investing questions, a few other things, a few things we noted. But when you look at your future, what do you want it to look like?
I think I'm a little bit gung-ho about wanting to live abroad. I don't think that that's in kind of our short-term goals. We have some nieces and nephews that are growing up that we want to be around for, some of their milestones over the next couple of years. But I absolutely do not want to retire in the United States. I would love to live abroad, be able to travel more as we have more free time. I'd love to live somewhere with universal healthcare because just the cost of healthcare and dealing with the insurance industry in the United States just absolutely stresses me out. So I don't know. I don't want that to be living abroad when we're in our 50s and 60s. Ideally, I would like that to be in the next 10 to 15 years, be working towards residency status. And I know, especially the European countries, some of them are a 5-year residency to, be a citizen and, have residence. Some of them are 10 years. And so I think within the next 3 to 5 years, we really need to be figuring out what country is that and starting that process and figuring out, what the visa process is that we need to figure out starting.
Mm-hmm. I think that we're on the same boat as far as future plans go. It's just that I'm more thinking about how we afford those types of situations. And we both make good incomes now. And how would it look differently if we were to move?
And I'm kind of more of let's move there and we'll figure it out. If I need to bartend at a pub, like to make friends meet,
I
be able to do
I am
that.
not that way.
Yeah.
It's normal to have two different perspectives. Any idea what country you like?
I think I've been looking at Spain and Portugal just from like the digital nomad visa perspective. I know that's like a hot topic right now. However, neither of our jobs, even though we work relatively remote right now from the US, both of our companies are not set up to support remote work from a foreign country. And so I realistically don't know if the digital nomad visa is something that we would be able to do because we'd have to find new jobs. And I've already looked at, we don't have any like pathway to citizenship through like grandparents and ancestors. And I haven't really looked at, I know Spain used to have like a golden visa for like property, but I haven't looked into a lot of that stuff yet. So we're kind of just at early stages of just kind of dreaming, but not really putting plans in place yet.
Yeah, I would say it's all discovery right now. We're not specific or locked into a specific country.
So we've already done nobody your grandparents that we can get citizenship from. So we gotta pay for it somewhere or the visa. Okay. Let me ask you a question about the employer, because I went through this for my wife. They said, hey, we must be a resident of actually the 48 contiguous states for whatever reason. I don't know why Alaska and Hawaii don't count. But that had to do with how they pay us rather than where we live. Have you looked at that?
Not.
I don't know if we looked at it specifically. So we used to work at the same company, and I used to work in HR. And so I know that they had somebody at the company that had moved to Canada with their girlfriend, and they were throwing kind of a fit about that from like an employment, from like a payment, and then obviously a benefits perspective. While we haven't gone down that route, I know that the company he still works for probably wouldn't support it. And for me, I don't think mine would support it either. I do have a team member that's potentially going to be going down that path in the next year. And so I'm kind of watching to see what they do and kind of what the response is to that.
Just keep in mind, what we've been able to do for some folks is not move their legal residency. So you're already living in a no income tax state. So that's a good place to stay. And what they've done is, hey, I'm going to rent a small apartment in the low income tax state or no income tax state, keep that as my legal residency, but then live abroad. And there's some kind of quirks to that of where you pay your taxes and how does that count and blah, 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 blah. But for employers, often if you're checking the box, that's kind of what they care about. like, do you have a legal residency with a license in a state that we recognize? Because a lot of companies now are like, look, I don't know if you're working from home or VPN from another country. They don't really know, but it's along those state laws that become an issue. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So one of the things we tend to encourage folks, especially when you're like, I might want to go to another country, is go try it for a bit. So I have somebody, what they're doing is for the next 2 years, they're going to spend 3 to 6 months in a different location and just wander, mostly EU countries, and see what it's like to live there. And the reason why we say to go there for 3 months is like, you go there for a month, that's a vacation. You go there for 3 months, you have to figure out where the grocery store is, like how to fill your car with gas. Like you have to actually live there. And then that would give you a chance to experience it, which you can do and still keep your residency in your current state.
I definitely think we've talked about that of spending like an extended period of time in a country just to see what things are like. Actually planning that, not really sure when that would be right now.
When would be ideal? If we could figure it out, would you want to do it like next year or do it like 5 or 10 years?
I think that's the hard part too. So I mentioned our nieces and nephews and wanting to be around, for some of their stuff. We also have a lot of friends that are in kind of their, weddings and baby showers era. And so I feel like, you may laugh at this, I already have a Google Doc of like the next 3 years. Every month is planned out of like, we have this wedding this month and, we have to hold for a wedding for this month. So, realistically, that probably wouldn't be until I would say 2027 at the earliest. We have a couple of out of country weddings next year, and then we're doing a big trip ourselves in the fall. So 2027 would probably be the starting point. But then that kind of brought up the question of, hey, if residency somewhere too, like, do we want to start exploring that? And then do we need to start filing for something, when we go over there as well?
Mm-hmm. So if you're thinking 2027, I would be doing that wander trip in 2027. Kind of the 3 months in different locations to see if that's the quality of life you like. So I'll give you an example. I had somebody that went to Spain, did 3 months, kind of like an Airbnb type concept, because that's usually the easiest way to do this. And they found they loved the hiking, loved the environment, loved what it was, but they were too far away from a city. And it's like, you don't know that until you go try it. It's like, I think I'd like this country. I think I'd like this environment. But if you go that 2027, you go that wandering every 3 to 6 months, you can maintain your residency in the United States. Then you decide, all right, which one am I going to move to? Then you can get to the visas and the other things. So the digital nomad is actually the cheapest and easiest way. And it will take you 5 years in most countries once you do a language test. But I swear that's going to disappear now because my AirPods do all the translation. But, they have it in their piece of paper. But to you, it doesn't make a difference whether it's temporary residency or permanent for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
How does that feel?
Better. That we can do a longer test period.
And that you've seen somebody do that and be successful.
So my general rule when you move to another country is you always rent anyway for a while because you're like, I want to move to, and then like, is the grass really greener? Casey, I heard you talk about universal health care or, some other things. Unfortunately, I got one person I talked to in Portugal. She's been living there, great, but she's moving back to the U.S. when she hits 65 for the health care. Mm-hmm. Probably not what you expected.
Yeah.
It's probably different, though, once she hits a certain age for Medicare and stuff like that, as opposed to going through the marketplace, maybe through the U.S.
So the marketplace, just because I happen to know that, for a couple, the back of the napkin math is it's somewhere between like $25,000 and $30,000 to pay for healthcare through the marketplace, including all of the out-of-pocket costs, as if you used every penny. So when people like move for healthcare, I'm like, you're moving for $25K? I'm like, I don't know that it's as big. It's this big problem in the U.S. That is a different question. But when you look at it as $25,000, it's not life-shattering. How does that feel?
I guess it makes me feel better. I think I have a lot of like fear of the unknown and fear of the future. And because of that, I would say of the two of us, just from like a financial perspective, I am much more risk adverse, especially when it comes to investing. But I even make the joke, like I sports bet a little bit because it's legal in the state that we live in. But when I sports bet, I put like $1 on everything. And like I get sad when I don't lose, but I get excited when I win like $7 too. But I think that has kind of caused a little bit of, not necessarily stress between the two of us, but kind of what led us here is that I just want a little bit of, I don't know, support in the investment perspective. Because you kind of made the joke earlier of, talking to my dad of like, yeah, your house was, however much money. And like, you were always told that if you work hard, you'll be able to afford a house. And realistically, like, that's just not the case. And we're thankful to have been able to afford to buy a house a couple of years ago. But I think in just seeing some of the stress about like, well, is Medicare going to go away? And I don't know if I believe that like, your money, like 7 years, like it doubles or because I feel like that's one of those age old things that we've always been told, but like, will it actually come true in our lifetime? Because we've seen, the housing affordability not be true for our generation. I just have a lot of fear of the unknown. And I think from like the retirement and the investing perspective, I think that I put less away than I probably should because I like the comfort of having money on hand or the money in like a high yield savings account rather than tied up, in stocks, bonds, CDs, whatever the long-term play looks like.
And I think a lot of her survey answers about greatest fear and stuff like that, or answers, is more around building emergency reserves and preparing for the unexpected, I guess.
Well, but I'm looking at it. You guys are 30 and 28 with a $450,000 net worth. You're doing phenomenally. What's the fear?
I think especially for me, I mean, I've always been kind of risk adverse, but I also got laid off from a job that I loved last year and was absolutely devastated by it. I mean, thankfully, I had a really great network and I was able to get a job within a month and a half after being laid off when so many people are struggling nowadays. Like, I know that I'm so grateful and, kind of so privileged to have had that opportunity, but having been laid off, especially from a job that I love, had to take a pay cut to, have a job and take that next step. I think that created a lot of fear in me as well from like just the emergency reserves and like having money to fall back on and having, liquid assets. So just kind of coming out of that experience, I think reshaped one, how I feel about finances, and then two, how I feel about just the corporate workforce in general.
The caveat being that when that had happened, and with how fortunate we are, we weren't really like fearful of being able to pay the bills or like that we were going to default on any of our things that we have to pay on. But I think there's some self-independence that comes from both of us of wanting to provide for the two of us and not rely on the other one's income for general fun, entertainment, or discretionary income.
Do you guys plan all the budgets together? Do them separately? How do we do it?
I would say I probably take more of that. I'm the banker dude of the couple for like how her dad was, but
we track everything in Copilot, and we have the conversations probably every other month about, hey, this was the budget, this is where we were on, all these different items. We have a document outside of Copilot that we track all of our expenses as well. It was a little bit eye-opening when we were prepping for this podcast. Actually, put in all of our expenses around costs for all of our pets, and it was a little bit crazy to see, what we spend all of that stuff on, but I just like having kind of the visibility. But from like a money flow perspective, we both have individual accounts and we do the like 95-5. So 5% goes into our personal accounts and then the other 95% goes into our shared account, which is the high yield savings account. And then that's where, bills and all that stuff.
I wouldn't say we use like a $0 budget where we know where every single dollar is going to. We're more so focused on our automated savings going to either high yield or stuff we already have set up for retirement anyway. And then the rest is kind of monitored, but not necessarily tracked to the very dollar amount. And we're taking dollars off the next month because we spent too much this month. It's kind of loose, but we're relying on our automation, I guess, that we have set up already.
That's fair. Here's the thing. Automation and numbers of dollars sitting in accounts or emergency funds are not going to make you feel more safe, Casey. I'm just going to call that out. If you look at the data on how much money do you need to feel safe, they've done quite a few surveys on this. It varies a little bit, but it's somewhere between 50% and 100% more than what you currently have. Does not matter what number you have. You ask people $2 million, they need another $1 million to feel safe. You ask people $10 million, they need another $5 million to be safe. Because it's about the way you think about money, not necessarily the hard and fast numbers. How does that feel?
I would say it's valid. And I would say, even if we did make more money or save more money, I would always keep moving that needle as well, just to feel safe and it's a safety net.
No, it's like not necessarily a scarcity mindset, but fear that the money's going to disappear. And coming from me, being in college and, worrying about how I was going to pay for dinner has kind of shaped the way I think about money. But I've been trying to kind of let go of some of that, just given our success in our careers.
Do you two care about how much money you give to the next generation?
To a degree, we have some nieces and nephews that we'd like to support for the future. But for the most part, I would say that answer is 90% no. We really did have some kind of eye-opening experiences listening to the Die with Zero book and thinking about that. And I definitely don't want the government to dictate, what happens with my money. And so I know that's a big item on our to-do list is we do need to probably put a will together. We, feel invincible as we are younger, but I think now that we're getting older, we do need some sort of plan in place. But I certainly don't want to die with millions in the bank. I'd like to use it up. And I would say that coming out of college, we were very much live below your means. We were kind of under the FIRE method, but now that we're getting older, we're kind of a little bit more towards FILE. We really have been prioritizing travel internationally or just weekend trips. And so kind of relying a little bit less about putting money away and, having money to spend on life experiences.
And there's been an internal or a struggle between that of, are we saving enough for retirement right now? Should we be saving more in different accounts versus, we're young right now. We should take advantage of our youth and being able to travel and the flexibility that we have. So there's always a back and forth and a kind of a push and pull between those two.
Do you two see yourselves as retiring and never working, that kind of classic FIRE, or more that FILE, cutting back on work?
Mine would probably be FIRE with a little bit of barista FIRE, I guess, if you will. But I would love to stop working as soon as possible.
I would definitely like to get out of the corporate workforce in probably the next 10 years. Like I said, I think I was just very, I don't know if disenfranchised is the right word, but, being laid off really kind of opens your eyes to, the grind of the corporate workforce and that, ultimately companies don't really care about you. And if you die tomorrow, your seat's going to be backfilled in a week. I would definitely say that I would like to do some sort of passion project within the next 10 years. And I don't know if that's a full gardener in the rose situation or if that's finding a part-time job. And I'm pretty open. I mean, I love planning travel, but I don't know if I want to be a travel planner because I think that the moment that you make your passion something that you need to make money from, I think you love it less. And so, like I said, I've kind of joked about it. I would pour beer in a pub or I would make cocktails on a beach for somebody. Or we would run a bed and breakfast. So I could see myself doing that in the next 10 years and kind of working part-time and that kind of be my retirement job.
So you both use 10 years as a number. Is that in your head somewhere or is that kind of just pulled it out of the air?
I think the 10 years, a lot of it kind of stems from the citizenship process to moving abroad. Some of the countries are 5 to 10 years, just depending on where you want to move. And then the 10 years is also our nieces and nephews will be in high school at that point. And so we had kind of gone through, the supporting our siblings through birth and childhood and, seeing them pick up sports and activities and, being part of that support process where they'll be a little bit more independent, kind of going on their college age years. So that's kind of a dual answer, I guess, to the 10 year.
The caveat of that being that we have other siblings that haven't had kids yet. And so it might
I was going to ask that question.
Cycle.
Yeah.
Like, are we just going to keep going and like you never leave? Or, I mean, are you like, you know what? No, 10 years from now, I want to be in another country somewhere.
I think that is a good question. I don't know if we have the answer for it right now, or at least I don't.
I think we could always make excuses because while we're talking about our nieces and nephews now, too, in the back of our minds, we're also thinking about our parents. Like my parents are very active in their retirement and we're able to, go on trips and stuff like that with them. And I still think that they will be relatively active. They joke about like their go, slow go, and no go years. I think they're going to be in their go years for probably another 10 to 15 years. Mm-hmm. But I think your parents will be a little bit earlier in their slow go transition. So I think that there could always be that excuse too of like, well, should we leave if they need help and assistance in the future? I don't know. I feel like there's always some excuse that we could come up with.
Yeah.
That was just kind
of we're still young enough right now that we still have grandparents too, and kind of juggling that, not necessarily caretaking responsibility, but making sure that we're still making time to see them and not just jetting off to Europe and never seeing anyone again.
Well, but I mean, I've had folks that move to another country and then what they find is they come back to the U.S. and are more deliberate about how they use their time. I'm here for 2 weeks. I spend the time with the people that matter. That's all I do. I'm not working, doing other stuff. Like I'm focused on that. And you actually get more quality time that way than just living, half an hour down the road for your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we've experienced because we have to be more deliberate about seeing Casey's family because they live in Wisconsin versus mine that live, right down the road. And my sister dealt with that as well, moving to California and making sure that she was being more deliberate or more specific about the time that she was having.
The challenge is we're always going to tell you to plan for your life first, then your finances. And you've given me at least 4 different answers on what you want your life to be.
Yep.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think a couple of those answers rely on other people. And that's a hard mindset for us to get out of like being selfish and planning for what we want to do. And then everybody else can kind of figure it out outside of that, which feels mean to say that. But
I'm going to challenge you on the being selfish part, okay? Because we get that all the time thrown at us. You shout for your selfish. I'm like, listen, the reality check is we've picked a different path than other people have. It gives us different options. It does not mean we're selfish. Now, if you want to embrace the selfishness, fine. I've had people, I'm like, fine, call me selfish. Call me whatever you want. But I'm going to go live my best life, and I think you should go live your best life. Would you want your family to hold themselves back for you?
I'm nodding in
Garrett?
agreement with what she said. Yeah.
So then why would you guys hold yourself back for them?
you shouldn't.
I'm not saying, like, screw your family. We're not talking to them. We're never going to, we're going to do a deliberate plan to do what makes you guys happy. Because what's happening is there's all this stuff in your brain that we call it the standard life script, and like all these words saying you must do this. This is your dad in your head or whoever. Like I always ask people, like, who's in your head? You already named a few of people. And saying like, well, you need to do this, and you need to spend this time with your family, and you need to be there for grandma, and you need to. Well, that's your opinion, Dad. I'm an adult. I get to pick my path. Like, we're not on the same path.
The different answers thing is interesting just because we're dealing with those internal pressures, voices in our head. We've also never lived abroad yet for full time. So Casey has studied abroad for 15 weeks in Italy and really liked it. But how does that actually look living there full time, moving all of our pets, kind of resituating our life? But the testing out period, I think, will be really important, and being able to take those extended pieces to make it feel like we're actually living there.
One of my clients took his dog to Portugal for his last trip. It's actually easier to get the dog an EU passport than to get the humans. Kind of how it works. You got to check some boxes. You got to talk to the vets. You got to get the right paperwork. But dog has an EU passport, and he still hasn't gotten his yet, even though he applied for the golden visa.
Yep.
So let me ask you a different way. We ignore the pressures. We ignore the family. We know they exist, but let's just ignore them for a minute. In an ideal world, 2027 comes around and we're past like 100 weddings. And by the way, I get you. You're right in that age. You're like, everybody's either having weddings or babies. You got to get past that. So we get to 2027. You two, what would you personally want to do? Not what everybody else says you should do. What you two would want to do.
Hey, Childfree Wealth listeners, it's Bree. If you haven't already signed up for our newsletter, be sure to get on it, where each week we send out information regarding what's going on in the world of child-free life and finances. You can sign up by finding the link in our description.
I mean, for me personally, I'd love to do, 2027, we do the exploring round, maybe pick, 3 or 4 different places. I feel like we already have kind of a good idea of some places that we would be interested in. And then ideally in 2028, that's when we would start hey, what are we doing? When do we move? Kind of having that plan in place and being able to move that next year.
I think
once we live over there, it's going to be hard to come back and then still have that living in our head and be like, well, we got to wait 7 more years.
Yeah. I think I'm on the happy wife, happy life situation or rationale, but more so the back end of, okay, how are we affording all of these things? What does it look like financially to move? Stuff like that. I used to be more ingrained with like building a career and seeing how far I could push it based on my schooling and feeling a lot of personal value out of all of that. But over the last couple of years, I would say that's kind of fading, more so focused on what I want to do after work rather than furthering my career.
So let me give you guys an alternative. Just play with it. So I have a client, very similar age. She's single, very similar net worth, and she's going to retire now and live in Tuvalu. Now, where's Tuvalu? It's a random island in the South Pacific. Like their biggest export is the .tv domain name. Okay, like just kind of what they exist. But she's going to go and surf and do scuba and do whatever. Maybe she do a little work here or there, kind of be the bartender, whatever. We did the entire cost for her to live for a year would be $28,000. You guys could do it. You're worried about the money. It depends on what life you want to live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And obviously traveling and stuff like that would be cheaper, but our annual expenses, if we're talking about just needs, are not very high, but we do spend a decent amount for discretionary wants, I guess. And so that would have to change depending on the...
What's your total spending now?
For expenses, for needs or wants?
If you've got them both, I'll take them both.
Let's see. In 2024, it was $150,000 spent.
Which, granted, we got married that year.
Yeah, so it's a little bit.
So
it's a little bit inflated.
About 20 of that was the wedding.
Yeah, I would say our monthly expenses would only be $4,000 or something like that a month.
So we're spending more like $10,000 a year. So we're spending $6,000 a year on discretionary stuff. Okay. By the way, I didn't have it. What's your mortgage interest rate?
3.37 or something like that.
If it was much higher than that, we'd pay that off first. But let me just make a note of that. So let me ask you a question. We're here in September. So that tells me you guys have spent 50 to 60K on stuff. That's a technical term, but that's all the stuff that you didn't have to spend money on.
Mm-hmm.
Would you have rather that money went to stuff you bought over the last year or towards the goal of leaving and going and living an amazing life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wouldn't say that we're spending on a lot of frivolous things. It's we spend a lot of money on travel just because we believe in investing in experiences. So, I mean, that's really where it's coming from, or a lot of it.
For our pets.
For our pets, yeah.
But let's say, what do you spend, 20K a year on travel?
Let's see. Last year was about 20K, yeah.
Can you tell I've done this once or twice? I can guess where most of your numbers are going to go. By the way, my wife and I have had this battle. The pets go in the needs section, not the wants. How many pets you got?
5.
5. Mm-hmm. Two dogs and 3 cats. I got that. Yep. So that's another $1,500 a month or so.
It's just over $11K a year.
Yeah, close. That still tells me you spent $30,000 on stuff that is not your pets or not travel.
Yep.
And if I asked you what that was spent on, you would have no clue because it's just random. This is where I make fun of DoorDash because DoorDash costs you double to get the same food. You can walk down or you can make it for 1/10 the price, but we'll ignore that.
Yeah.
But it's the question of, is your money going to where your values are? Casey, you've told me 2 things. You want to make sure you feel comfortable and safe, and then you want to go travel the world. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And Garrett has said, I want Casey to be happy. Garrett, we'll work on it. You need to worry about yourself too, but let's just go with it. Would you rather spend $30,000 on stuff each year or $30,000 towards secure, safe, and finally being expats or wandering the world?
Yeah, certainly the latter.
Mm-hmm.
So why aren't you doing it?
We haven't talked to an expert yet.
Nobody's kicked us in the butt about it yet.
Yeah.
The challenge is, in case I mentioned this before, getting comfortable with money is not necessarily the numbers. It's changing your money mindsets. You two, let's say you talked about the market returns or your money doubles every 7 years, 7 to 10 years, kind of that's the number we use. But you guys had said, hey, 10 years, I want to be out. Your net worth will be over $1 million. Well, it could be over 1.5, depending on how much you save, and depending on invest. Or, you know what? Maybe your net worth doesn't go up that much, but you invest in your quality of life. Maybe you are spending it on that international move or travel or the things that you enjoy, and both paths work. The problem is when people are like, well, what should I do? And I'm like, well, it depends on what you want. What do you think, Garrett?
I think it's an interesting question. I've always been tracking those net worth type things and making sure that I'm thinking now for the future later, I guess. But the actual idea of saving specifically toward the goal of moving is something we haven't really talked much about.
Well, I feel like it's hard to do that because it's somewhat of an arbitrary number.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh, our costs for moving is going to be all in $100,000. So let's save until we reach $100,000. Like it'll be variable depending on, cost to move the pets and where we end up and what the cost for visas are going to be. And so it feels hard to save for that because we just don't know what that number is.
Yeah. Or also, how long it's going to be. Are we picking up jobs or are we saving or a sabbatical type thing of if we didn't have any income for a year or two, what those emergency reserves look like, that type of planning, I guess.
So let's play this out. And by the way, Casey, we can get you numbers. The numbers aren't going to change the answer. It's a question of where you focus. But let's play this out. If in listening to what you just said, I said, all right, in 2027, if we set a goal that you both had a job that could be done remotely. So that gives you, a year and a half, 2 years to either figure out how to get your employer to do it. Like somebody else does it first and you're like, I want to copy them or shift your career. How does that feel? Let's start there.
I mean, I'm definitely more, I guess, willing to do that just because, like I said, not that I don't have company loyalty or like loyalty to the workforce, but like I'm much more open-minded about all of that just because like I felt like the dream job that I had just went away because the business wasn't doing well. And so I've always been willing to kind of change careers. Like I'm also willing to go back to school if that helps out and, do something different. And like the core of my job is just talking to people. And so I feel like a lot of core jobs, like that's a core skill set. I think yours is a little bit more technical, but yours is also a little bit in high demand in other countries. So that opens opportunity for you to apply for, jobs abroad that stay in the same field.
Mm-hmm. I would say I'm probably more tied into the career and less wanting to make changes or go back to school to make a career change just because of the success that I've had and the security that I've had from my current career.
So if we can make you feel successful and secure, would you be willing to do a remote job?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So if we spent the next essentially almost 2 years figuring out a solution so that you both have a remote job. And by the way, it's okay if those remote jobs pay less than what you're getting paid now. Have to work on your mindset. That's a separate thing we're going to have to play with. But if we could find a job that you enjoy-ish, I mean, let's be real, it's a job. So like, am I really going to find something, I'm super passionate about, maybe get lucky. But we find that job over the next 2 years. And then we say, okay, in 2027, you start doing the wandering. So 2028. And by the way, good thing about having a remote job is you can wander and still work. Hey, your time zones are a little screwed up, but who cares? You can figure that out. And then 2028, you make a move to one of the countries you pick that you found when wandering. Does that make you happy?
That would be pretty cool, yeah.
Okay. The total cost for the move then is going to be about $50,000. Let me tell you kind of where I'm coming up with this. The bonus of having a remote job, you have to, in most of the countries that do digital nomad visas, you have to have $50,000 a year of income. Look, as long as you guys are making more than minimum wage, the two of you will have more than $50,000 remote income. Besides the fact you guys have careers and actually have path. I'm not going back to school and spending money on this. No, but you guys can do that. So the visa process now becomes very easy. If you haven't got a chance, take a look at the episodes I did with Andy and Libby. They just went to France on this. It's relatively simple. Now, that takes care of the visa, so we don't have to pay money on that. It's going to cost you about $25,000 to sell your house and about $25,000 to do the actual move. That means the dog, moving your stuff, flights, the cats, the vet bills, the paperwork, that's doable.
Mm-hmm. We can pay for that right now without even selling the house and accounting for equity we have in the house as well. Yep.
By the way, I don't let people be remote landlords from across the water. You do not want to be renting out your house while you're living in France. I'm just telling you that right now. We'll come back to why, but it's a no. A lot of folks think they should do that. A lot of parents will tell you to do that. And I'm like, being a remote landlord and worrying about the hot water heater blowing while you're in France is just not a good idea. Now, you can do that pretty simply. Now, if you two end up both with a fully remote job, let's say between the two of you, you're making 75, even maybe 100K, even 50K, whatever it is a year. Chances are, in many of these countries, as long as you're willing to keep your lifestyle where it kind of is at, you can live off that. And if you're living in a random EU country, traveling to other EU countries is relatively simple and cheap.
Which is the appeal. of a living.
Yeah. And like I said, I have seen that in a different mindset than Casey has because she was able to study abroad in college. And so I see it from we do vacations and stuff like that of seeing how easy it is to travel. But I think it's different actually being over there.
Yep. Realistically, this can all be done. You could be in 2028 living in another country, living your best life, and not have to change much of your life as is now. How does that feel?
It's pretty cool. Feels like it's like the far off dream. Like it could happen in the next couple of years if we just, buckle.
Yeah.
Stop buying so much bourbon.
What was that, Casey?
I said stop buying so much bourbon.
That's a different problem. Well, I mean, the reality check is the more you can put aside from buying stuff and put towards this 2028 goal, the better. Because if I'm going to convince you two to take a lower salary in 2028, you two are going to need to change your mindsets around money and going to have to feel comfortable you have enough money. I've done this enough times to know it can happen. It just takes a minute because people get stuck in their head. I need X amount of dollars to retire. Garrett, do you have that number? What's your fire number?
I might have it for me, but that's different when we're talking about joint expenses. So as of right now, I don't have that number.
What's your number for you?
Not sure I would have it. Maybe 5 million.
Yeah. And by the way, if you don't care about how much money you pass on the next generation, that means you're dying with, $100 billion that you don't need to die with. I'm saying, hey, based on where you are right now in your money, where you are in your life, you focus on this for a couple of years. You could be living that life in 2028. Your numbers, your actual net worth may not have a huge jump by then, but your quality of life could.
Yep.
And I'm okay with
it. I have to shift my mindset a little bit more just because I've been tracking all of that stuff for so long and shifting to investing more in the quality of life piece.
Yeah. You both have some huge mind shifts coming. And this is where I love the folks in the FIRE community. The challenge is the FIRE community teaches bad mindsets to an extent. Everything's about scrimping and saving so that you can retire later. And I'm like, and then people get to FIRE and it's like the dog who caught the car. They're like, what the hell do we do now? And I'm like, you learned how to live off of eating ramen noodles and making your own soap. Go enjoy your life. And getting them to shift their mindset's a challenge. And what I'm saying is you're living a different life anyway. Go enjoy it now, in 3 years, rather than 10, 15, 20 years. And we were on a path where every 5 years you're going to say something else. Well, somebody had a kid and grandpa's sick and this, you're never doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the challenge is, this is where working with a professional will help you, which is someone who can help you change your money mindsets. You both have money mindsets that need to get changed. Casey needs to change her mindset so she feels comfortable with the money. And Garrett needs to change his mindset so that it's hey, it's okay if I don't have a lot of money. It's kind of it doesn't have to optimize and I have to feel safe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Garrett, what are you thinking?
About that mindset shift, I guess, just because I've been so focused on optimizing for a long period of time.
Casey, how about you?
I mean, it is definitely hard. And I do need to feel comfortable about, money, because I feel like right now I've been more of the let's go live our lives and have these experiences. And we're okay because we've already hit milestones. We've bought a house. I'm super close to being able to max out HSA and, do the 15% to retirement. And I'm we have jobs that we can go fall back on. It's the money is going to come. And so shifting that mindset of, okay, what if we don't have the current jobs that we have, but we still have that, experiential lifestyle and being able to travel and being okay with, well, the money that we've put away will, be able to support us. It's not necessarily the money that's coming in and just shifting.
So here's what I want to show you what I just did in that whole structure. What I did was I said, okay, how about we take a hypothetical that you two are making enough money as a remote job to pay your day by day bills. I am assuming you're not putting anything else towards your retirement, putting money aside. Well, then you just take your $500,000 net worth and let it grow on its own. You'll get to your 5 million. It just take a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the mindset shift again. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look at it this way. So let me just round up. You got 5 million. So on average, every 7 to 10 years it doubles. Let's go 7. So 7 years from now, it's $1 million. That means 14 years from now, it's $2 million. That means 21 years from now, it's $4 million. That means you guys are just barely 50 with $4 million.
Mm-hmm.
And that assumes you put zero extra dollars saved away. And the market return is about, what is it? About on average.
Yep.
Do you guys really need more than $4 million at 50?
I think that's part of the unknown, I guess, of what does the cost of living really look like. It kind of feels like we're stuffing money in a mattress in a sense.
You are.
of planning for the unexpected, I guess.
You're doing what we call mindlessly saving. So there's mindlessly spending and mindlessly saving. And you're like, let me just put this away. It's a good boy, good girl thing to do. I got to put this money away. Okay, cool. At some point as a child-free person, it's possible to have saved too much money. My nephews get what's left over. If they get $5,000 or $10,000 or even $100,000, I'm okay with that. If they get $1 million, I made a mistake because either I should have given that to them earlier or I should have used it myself.
Yep.
Is that about where your mindset is?
Yes. More so on the die with zero and less estate assing, I guess.
Right. So now we're 51 with 4 million. We go one more out. We're now 58 with 8 million. We're 65 with 16 million. Like, where do you want to stop? Mm-hmm. And that all assumes you're not adding any more money into your money. You're not saving anymore.
As long as we have the jobs that would supply the paying the bills. I mean, what does that look like? Is the number dropping using like the 4% rule?
Well, the 4% rule assumes you want to pass some money to the next generation. Like this is why I push back on the fire community. I'm like, there's just these assumptions. And Bill Bengen just came out and said, well, maybe it's more like 5.5%. Those are all random numbers pulled out of the air. Mm-hmm. Where I'm going is you're trying to let your money drive your life, and I'm trying to let your life drive your money.
Yep.
Casey, what are you thinking? You look deep in thought.
It's just, we talked about the, like, even when money grows, like, I feel like the needle moving, like your needle still moves. Like when you were saying like $4 million when I'm 50, I was like, well, I could spend all of that if we had like a tragic healthcare accident. I don't know if there will ever be like a number in my head of like, I will feel comfortable living my life and, you know, continuing to take risks, especially as I, you know, get older. And it's just something that I need to get behind. I can be supported on it.
Yeah, this is where you have to shift that money mindset. Because otherwise what's going to happen is, because I've seen it, I got a couple like you guys in there in their 60s and they got whatever, $15, $20 million and they're still cutting coupons. And I'm like, you don't need to cut coupons. You're not going to run out of money. Like, I'm serious.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, they're physically cutting coupons. Like, I mean, like, you know, like, come on, at least get the app. But like,
yeah,
if you don't change your mindset, that's where you end up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just so hard because like we're so young and we haven't seen the like 7-year investment yet to be able to say like, hey, our money did actually double in 7 years. And I kind of go back to that example of like, you know, what our parents did. We've been told to do that, but we haven't actually been able to do that or a lot of like millennials. And so like in my head, I'm like, well, is our money really going to double in 7 years and double again in 7 years? And so I have a hard time with the unknown of what our money is actually going to do.
All right, so let's look in the last 4 years. The last 4 years, your money doubled. That's just what the market did.
Yeah.
We can go look at the math, and I bet Garrett has a sheet somewhere that your net worth about 4 years ago was probably about $100,000. Does that sound about right, Garrett?
Yep. My investments just this year have jumped like 50K, and that's just accounting for mine and not her separate retirement accounts. I feel more optimistic about the market just given my reading than she probably does.
Well, that's just who I am as well. Like if I could have all of my money in bonds or a high yield savings account and have nothing in the stock market, I would do that. Mm-hmm. Just because that's like the level of risk that I have, but I know I'm not supposed to do that at my age.
Well, and we can figure out options. I mean, that is the argument that you got to be older. You can't do it right now. But later in your life, you buy an annuity and you just have a fixed amount of money you get for the rest of your life. And it's a guaranteed amount.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The math-wise, it's actually not the right answer. But it works for people because they're like, look, I just know I get X amount. If it goes up by inflation, takes care of my long-term care, check, done.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that probably works for you, Casey.
Yeah.
For you, Garrett, it'll break your brain. Like,
yeah.
Casey, your question then becomes, do you want to work on shifting your mindset and in 2028 be living your best life in another country? Or do you want to have a conversation in 10 years when you're still not comfortable with your money?
I mean, certainly the former, too.
You're laughing, but those are your two paths. And I've worked with clients enough that I don't know which one you pick. Mm-hmm. We always jokingly look at this when we do these checkups with folks. We'll have these conversations about here's what you need to work on, here's what you need to do. And either they sign up like in the first month or we see them back in about a year or two. And about 2 years later, they're like, yeah, I wish I had worked on. Great. When you're ready, we're ready. And it's one of those, when you're ready to make the change, you can. You two are in a good financial position. The question about like, hey, what should I put to Roth? That's a simple question. It's the what goals you're working towards and what life do you want to live and how do you want to get there? How do you want to shift your mindset? That's the hard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's what we get bogged down about too. Like, especially the Roth. Like, I think we've hit the joint threshold for not being able to do like Roth IRAs anymore. That stressed us out. But I'm like, well, we're doing all these other things. We have all these other accounts. So.
Well, and I'm going to go there because I promised Garrett I would go there. We'll do the hard, fast math. But here's the thing. The reason why I put that to last is because it almost doesn't matter. Like, we get stuck on that. And this is why working with a financial planner is good, because it's a third party. They're like, stop, hold up. You're missing the forest for the trees. Like, you're working on optimizing that really doesn't make a difference on your life. A couple things on this. One, I noticed, Casey, on your pay stub, you're not maxing out your 401k.
Yeah. I think I'm 12% between the Roth and the 401k.
12% of your income, but not necessarily 12% of completion or yeah.
Right. So the first step is to max out your 401k, which is $23,500 this year before you do IRAs. And you can do that no matter what your income level is. Now, what that really means is Casey will have a very small paycheck because we'll be taking money and putting it into the 401k. That's okay. I will say what I saw also, and I'll just use Casey's because I have it up. I think Garrett's similar. I tend to tell folks, pick one. Either you're doing traditional or you're doing Roth. If you're splitting your 401k between the two, you're kind of like betting both sides. So the bet for Roth is you assume rates are going to go up, you bet Roth, and when you're in a state with no income tax, doing Roth is a much better choice because you never pay state income tax on that. Mm-hmm. You guys decide to move to New York. Why? I don't know, but you move to New York or California, and next thing you know, you're paying 7 or 10% income tax on your traditional when it comes out. Your Roth, you'll never pay income tax. While you're living in a state with no income tax, you put it in Roth, with one exception. The other problem we run into is many countries, we got to look at the tax agreements. Many countries look at your Roth and say that's just a retirement account and they will tax the money as it comes out. Which country you're going to is going to change my answer a little bit here. We don't have that answer, so I would just go, all right, let me put it in Roth for now. So I would be maxing out both of your 401ks Roth before we ever talk about the IRAs, backdoor IRAs, anything like that. How's that feel?
It feels, good to have a plan and good to have, something that is actionable now to make me feel better about if I'm going to put my money and it's going to be locked somewhere, this is the best place to put it. Because I already feel good about like HSAs because I know they're triple tax protected and like I can get behind that mindset and that, or the concept of that. But it's all the other things that I'm like, well, am I doing the right thing?
Mm-hmm. And we've had conversations about all of that and me pushing on Case to put more in, coming from that optimizing rationale. So it's just interesting.
Yep. So 2 things on that. One, Garrett, I need you to stop worrying about optimization. Because this is like down to the last, 10.1.111% or whatever. Like, okay, come on. Like, figure out. My goal is always to make your finances simple so your life be amazing. Simple finances aren't always optimized. Mm-hmm. Just call that out. The second part is you cannot teach your spouse anything. The general rule in coaching is you can't teach somebody who's seen you naked or they've seen you naked. So you can't teach your spouse, you can't teach your parents anything about money. Just kind of how it works.
I feel like that's fair. Casey's dad actually used to schedule an annual checkup with a financial planner, even though he was doing a lot of the work, but just to show his wife that they were on the right track. So, it's similar to that.
All the time, I'll say the same thing that you guys have been saying to each other forever, and it's just heard differently. Mm-hmm. And that's perfectly fine. I'm used to it. I can also be the bad guy. Like, let me say the bad stuff. But where I'm going is I'm less worried about the optimization, more worried about changing your money mindset so you get what you want in 2028, 2029. I don't care. Like, it could be 2030. The year we picked was just kind of to give you an example. But it has to work towards a goal. If you're always going to wander like, well, maybe I'll check back with you in 5 years. Your numbers will be higher. You'll probably double your net worth by then. But you'll still be going, well, I don't feel comfortable. I don't know where we're going.
Yep.
So after this, you'll get a checkup report and have a whole bunch of details. Garrett, you'll love it. You can optimize it. There's a tax report there. You can optimize, go do your thing. What it's going to say is, whether it's with us or someone else, I'm going to encourage you to work with somebody to change that money mindset when you're ready. That's going to be the thing that gets you there. And one of the things that's going to be a challenge for both of you is we're going to have to unprogram some of the stuff your parents have said, some of the stuff the fire community has said, because all of that reflects their belief, not your life. Any type of general rule, that just impact, it's everybody. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't fit you. And it takes people a while. When we do this process, we meet with our clients on a monthly basis. Usually about the first 6 months, they fight with us on like, are the numbers right? Cool. They get through that. They finally feel comfortable. And then they're like, oh, I can actually do my goal. Yes. Now let's work on that. It's like, but it just takes them like 6 months to unprogram everything they were told they had to do.
And I feel like all the reading that I've done, whether that be the FIRE community or XYZ finance book, they're all saying very similar things built on similar ideas of retirement and when that looks like, what that looks like, and then estate planning for kids, which doesn't really apply to us.
Yep. You mentioned it. We do need to get your estate plan in place. You have a power of attorney, medical power of attorney, financial power of attorney. We need to get a will and trust. We'll send you some notes on that. We actually have a new service coming out called Childfree Trust. We do that for child-free people. But all of this, you're right. All the books are based on certain assumptions. And we call it the standardized script. It says what you got to do. So what we're talking CFP land is what the books are based on. And I think that's poisonous because it just makes assumptions about everybody. So it's automatically wrong. That's where I'm trying to make sure it matches you.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a rating or review. We'd love to keep the conversation going. Please let us know your thoughts wherever comments are available or email us at media@childfreewealth.com. To stay up to date, find and follow Childfree Wealth on social media. If you're interested in working with us, learn more by visiting our website, childfreewealth.com. We'll see you next time.